is that?
No, we'll.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock, and today is November the 8th, and this is the meeting of the Capital Outlay Committee. And did you all receive the minutes from our
Yes.
kind secretary? Any
Yes.
comments? Any amendments? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes of November the 1st are approved. The way we ended the meeting of the 1st was that we had some open issues on the building roof and on the golf department. And those are the two things we're going to address. Fortunately, two of our members, in fact, visited. Yes?
Excuse me, I just want to raise a point before you get into the various items. I wanted to praise Chris for the tremendous job he did on Monday night before the selectmen. He represented the Capital Outlay Committee very, very well.
Oh, Chris.
Yes.
Why didn't-
Chris and Chris, so we'll
Well,
have to,
looking, no, because it's his committee and he's the vice chair.
but the compliments go to.
Chris, I tried.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I got to, and I was going to get that on old
Okay.
business.
Right.
But fortunately, I was out of town. Unfortunately, I was out of town. But I was in direct communication with the vice chair that evening, Sunday eve, Tuesday eve, whatever. We were in contact. And I just gave him what would appear on TV. So we're good.
Right. Okay.
So, as I was saying, we were very lucky to have two of our members visit the maintenance building, and I'd like to hear their reaction or their take of the visit. It wasn't an actual bus visit, but it was.
It was a coincidence. We both arrived there at the same
We
time.
just
ad
happened
hoc.
to arrive at the same time.
And I had asked to see Link, and he quickly grabbed Sean because Sean is more familiar with the building. So Sean and Link and I and Bruce went out into the garage, and they showed us where the insulation was falling down, and they showed us where there's about 5 places where it leaks. One of the most severe ones is over an area where the pots are stored. And the insulation is non-insulating because most of it is wet and has mold in it. And mold is not a good thing to have where people are working. So I feel that although it's a lot of money, I feel we should keep it in this year's budget at $260,000. And that's, in a nutshell, my take.
Yeah, I agree with Pete. What we heard from Sean was that the last time we dealt with this roof, we dealt with it in sections rather than all at once. And that really was not a good thing to do, and that's part of our problem, because when you do one section and then you wait and come back and do another section, where the two sections join is where we're having a lot of the problems. So we tried to save money the first time around, and we are paying for it.
Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
I appreciate everything you say. I actually took
You
some
talk
pictures.
into the mic? Or to turn it, yeah.
I actually took some pictures on Wednesday morning because it rained Tuesday night after you two had visited, just to show the amount of water with just a little bit of rain. This is right under where we were standing. This is a good picture of the rust on the other end of the building, on the edges. And this shows the patches that we've attempted to try to do over the last few years.
That's outside,
This is outside on top of the roof.
okay.
Like I said, over the past few years, we put this on the capital plan 3 years ago. We knew, didn't want to jump right on it, and we'll try to keep it going, and that's what we attempted to do. This is the year that we had planned all along.
Sean, let me ask you a question. So the 260 would be the removal of the existing?
Yes, it's removal of the existing insulation and the roofing. It's a standing seam metal roof,
Replacing
replacing
the roof?
completely.
Okay.
In the insulation.
And the insulation.
Yeah.
Is it going to be spray foam, or is it going to be
No, it'll be the same as it is now. It's fiber.
just the pink stuff, or the?
Fiberglass bats. It's made for, this type of building has a vinyl coating on the on the inside where the workers are, so it looks pretty.
So spray foam wouldn't work. I mean, it'd probably last longer.
You know, I don't know if it would last any longer or not. The insulating factor would be different, but I don't think it would do anything to its life.
My experience, spray foam does not work in this area. Greater Boston area, a few years ago, they decided to spray foam all of the skating rinks, and it didn't work. The freeze-thaw cycle is a problem.
Okay. Okay, so we had that open, or did we vote?
It was open.
Okay.
No vote.
So do I hear anything?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 260,000.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks for the pictures, and gentlemen, thanks for,
Yeah.
Comment. The document says 267.50.
Yeah, oh, that's right, yeah.
267.50.
750.
Yeah, we only said 260,000, so.
Okay.
Good point.
As presented.
As presented.
okay, so we've knocked that off. Is the golf tier?
So Roman does have material in regards to the golf department request, but also the debt and the debt service for the golf department. And Carol and I have had an opportunity to shoot on it too. So we could do one, the request first. So I think they're interrelated, that's why I bring it up. For minute purposes.
Okay, let's, for minute purposes, I want to do the request first, okay? So,
Well, maybe as an
Yeah,
overview,
please.
Mr. Chairman, I think that I kind of simplified the form and just called it golf funds. I will get a little bit more detailed, but I think Joe McParland, one of the members, had brought up and said, what are the different funding sources that are available to Roman to fund things? So I'm just going to go through here in terms of the golf revolving account is golf lessons and pro shop sales. It can be used for pro shop expenses, clubhouse and kitchen maintenance, modernization and lessons. The golf infrastructure fund is the new surcharge on all greens fees and cart fees. And then the Cranberry Valley infrastructure, including the clubhouse facility, maintenance facilities. So you can see that the spending limit is approximately how much is brought in on an annual basis. The balance is the amount that's in there. And then the third one, the receipts reserved for appropriation, which is from membership fees, our capital improvement required annual town meeting, and that is 187,000. Maybe, Roman, you could just go through which ones are funded from which source on
I'd be happy to.
on the
And
chart.
if you notice at the bottom, there's the note that says $82,000 from the Golf Improvement Fund has already been dedicated at town meeting to this off-season projects. So that balance will be 105,000. So the Golf Revolving Fund in general that operates our pro shop business, where we purchase goods out of that, and then the balance that is accumulated there is accumulated by pro shop profits in general. The Golf Infrastructure Fund was created to pay the debt service to begin with on the new cart building, the cart project. And currently that fund is gaining money as expected. We're covering 100% of the anticipated debt currently for that project. And then the Golf Improvement Fund funds annual projects on the golf course. That's funded by membership, a surcharge on membership fees by the members for green grass golf course projects that affect the playability of the golf course.
So just going down the list, though, which ones of your
Well, let
capital
me- can I
requests
ask-
would?
Oh,
go to-
sure.
Sorry.
just before you do that, Roman, the golf revolving fund, what happens at the year end, if there's a balance, it stays,
Carries forward, yes.
Rolls over.
rolls over.
Which one
If
was
it goes over 250,
Revolving.
what happens?
That's
You
just,
can't go over it.
that's just the spending limit. So,
We can
Okay.
only bring in that amount for authorization to then expend that amount.
Okay, so the next one would be where the spending limit is 100 and there's 139 in the account?
currently our fees are generating about $97,000 per year in that account. And that's on hold for when the debt begins on the Cart Barn project.
Okay.
I can go down the list of the projects for FY '20.
Mm-hmm.
I know there were questions about where they actually are coming from. The 35 and 75,000, the top two, which are landscape reclamation and major tree removal, and then bunker renovation, those are gonna be out of the golf improvement fund.
So that's
That's out of
160,
improvement.
correct? 160?
No, 75 plus 35, 110.
75 and 35, the first
Is one-
two.
Is 110, and then
110.
50 is 160.
No, so we're not getting to that one quite yet. The 50,000, that's
Okay.
coming, that's coming out of our, the budget line item for capital,
So the
Out of
one,
your operating budget.
out of our operating budget.
so 110 is coming out of golf improvement,
Golf improvement, yes.
and you have 105 in there,
Yes.
unappropriated.
That generates about $80,000 per year when memberships start coming in January.
So it'll be enough.
It'll be in there.
Okay.
Mowing equipment, is that a word?
And then the next one is the mowing equipment lease. That's out of operating budget as well. There's a line item for our lease in the operating budget.
So 50 and 87 are out of the operating budget.
Yes.
Do you, Chris, what is the operating budget total?
Go ahead. The total
Um,
budget for the operating budget, how much is related to
Yeah.
these in total?
So I don't know, have the exact lines. I know we have a capital budget line item of $73,000 for capital, which is where the 50,000 is gonna come from. Then we have the lease line item in our maintenance budget. I'm not sure what the total is on that. I know we were anticipating that, so it covers the 87,050.
So if you have $1 million budget, those two items come out of that.
They
They're
come
part
out of that operating
overall.
budget. Our operating expenses last year were $1.45 million approximately,
On the expense side.
and the expense side, yes.
Okay. Is the Finance Committee addressing? Have you presented to them yet, the Finance Committee?
No, we won't get there until we do the operating budget.
Okay.
Roman, on the mowing equipment,
Yes.
how many pieces of major equipment do you have? And and secondly, have you had the debate over lease versus buying?
Yes, major piece of equipment, I'd have to go back and count each inventoried item there because we have many pieces of equipment. I believe this lease includes 8 pieces of major equipment.
Okay.
We have crunched the numbers between buying and leasing, and it's been by far to our advantage to lease, has been our take on it. I could easily reevaluate that.
I think
for
from
you,
some
but-
of my discussions with Sean and with Roman, because it's pretty much in constant use, it doesn't have the longevity of, having the value of buying it. So having the ability to every 5 years get new pieces of equipment probably is a little bit more pragmatic to take as an approach.
At one time, they used to own the equipment.
Yeah.
And the equipment got old, broke down all the time, didn't get the job done. It was really a hassle. And at one time, we researched all that, and they decided that leasing was the way to go.
And with the busy golf season that we have, we really don't have time for a piece of equipment to be down. We really don't. It would affect the playability of the golf course and the ability of the golf course to generate money.
Rich, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we get any benefits at the end of the lease, like do they give us equipment that they don't want?
We do get benefits. Sean could probably speak better to that exactly, but we have bought out leases before. And there is benefits with leases, yeah, absolutely. We've bought old equipment from them as needed.
So it's a bargain for us to do it that way.
Yes, it
then?
is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't vote for golf, we have to vote for golf. We know where it's coming from.
With the other,
Just a quick question.
Surely.
The information at the top of the page, can you talk about that?
that's why I thought it's a related discussion, so I thought it'd be worthwhile to have it before you take a vote.
Okay.
But-
Okay.
So one of the questions that came up is, as we have these funds, as Roman kind of alluded to, we have kind of spoken for these funds in a lot of cases. So we did have a discussion, Carol came in and we had a discussion about, you can see at the top, the question that was also asked was how much of the golf debt service goes specifically to what was taxpayer supported and not golf fee funded. And in this case, you can see that there were three of them. The 3.74 for the golf course renovations. We're really, FY19 is already being paid, so that's somewhat irrelevant. So we're looking at FY20 would be the upcoming fiscal year, so we have 75,000 for that for 20, 21, and 22. And you can see the amount of interest from the high of 7,500 to a low of 1,500. And then the remaining other ones are the golf course clubhouse, which is finalized in terms of payment in 21. And then I don't know what the ad ref or March, on the golf course improvement, that is paid off the 35,000. The one thing that we looked at, really the one that would be the candidate to go in and see, I had mentioned last time that usually at the last 5 years of a long-term borrowing, you have the ability to go in and refinance it, you could pay it off. You know, you can see the bottom two at 0.86 and 0.72. We're not gonna do any better. You know, quite honestly, those
Absolutely.
numbers are so low that we're not gonna do any better. The 3.74 is in the range. Now, the rates have been kind of creeping up. So where before I've always said it's probably in the 3% range, it's probably closer to 4%. So we're in that range. The issue that really has emerged, really two issues, is that in 2006, I mean, there was an expectation by the taxpayers that this would be done as a general obligation. So there was no fee set aside to kind of cover the obligation to do this. The second, if we do go in and look and wanted to pay this off, and actually I was talking to Roman about this morning, you know, when people see all these cities that go out and say, oh, we're gonna build a football stadium for the professional football team, that's had an impact in a negative way. What that impact has had is that the bond rating agencies, the IRS in particular, look and see, and they say, okay, if this is a municipal project, if this is a government project, then it should be for a civic purpose. If this is a football stadium that's being funded by a community, is it really a civic purpose, or is it a purpose that's related to a lease and the owners that own the football teams making money? So they don't care about our small projects, but they do care about these billion-dollar projects. So the IRS and our bond counsel in particular has been, the last 2 to 3 years, meticulous about if you do a borrowing, is the borrowing specifically for a public purpose, or are you going to lease it? And is there a private sector agency or private sector party that's going to make money off of it? So if we open this up, we probably will have to start to answer these questions, and we have been answering these questions for Saquatucket Harbor and some of these other projects that we've been doing, that is it a revenue bond? Is it a lease to benefit the private sector, or is it general municipal use? So I have a feeling that the opportunity to save, and maybe we go from 3.4%, maybe we save 1% or 2%. So you're talking about maybe saving out of that 15,000, 16,000, maybe $2,000. By the time we're done doing the analysis on whether the project is been generally used for a general municipal purpose, or was there any lease arrangements that were made, we're probably gonna spend the money, honestly, in fees from these people, IRS, asking our bond counsel to kind of look at these and answer these questions. So I think that there's gonna be more problems to trying to refinance this than we're really gonna realize in value. So it would be my recommendation, I think it's a unanimous recommendation from Roman and from Carol, that we just, I mean, they're almost paid off anyway.
Yeah.
That by 2022, in all future ones that we've done, at least in the time I've been here, I mean, really with the initial board that I started working with, anything that we can fee-driven fund, we have been fee funding it. And that has generated a lot of this discussion about are other people making money from us doing it? And, we're prepared to kind of answer those and position the town the best we can. But the recommendation on this would be, we're close enough to having these paid off that we would recommend that these just be paid off.
Well, that brings up my point. Ending it, if we have free cash, and we're paying almost 4% on the money, why can't we prepay it? In total,
Well, we don't have free cash available to pay it.
we don't.
No, is part of the answer to that. And we don't have golf funds that are available because the golf funds are spoken for future projects.
Okay, so out of approximately 650, and if 650,000, and if you deleted 2019, you still got about $400,000 in debt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think trying to go back to cover things that were done in 2006 is going to be a little difficult, as Chris said. But I think going forward is what we can do is you said you roughly have expenditures of about $1 million?
Our expenditures are about 1.45.
And your
Philosophy here.
Revenue.
Revenue is 1.85.
Yeah, they pretty much break even in terms of its
Yeah, so
operation.
you have a piece each year that can be used
Well,
in terms of borrowing. And
But-
of the 1.45, how much is that used to cover borrowing? Because you have a
Well,
bunch of-
I think,
All of it is here.
Roman, I think the question though is, your operating budget, if
Right.
you're at 1.4,
Right,
you bring in enough revenue for 1.4 to
Right.
cover that. You have 3 funds that also bring in other revenue,
Right.
but you're using that on other projects as
Right.
that money is spoken for, such as the cart barn being one that
Sure.
we have.
the car barn's being paid for, the golf course projects are
There's
being
not
paid
a
for by
surplus of 300,000 coming into the golf operation.
You're right, because they're not supposed to be a surplus.
Right.
But indeed, there's $300,000 used for capital, one way or the other. 'Cause you
Yeah,
put it-
out of the budget, there's
Right?
money that
So-
goes for capital.
If that's there, then as we go forward, that's what we should be looking at and doing as much as we can. And I think that's different than before, because before it wasn't done that way.
Absolutely. In the last 5 years, I don't think I've engaged in a project where we haven't tried to use fees to decrease the amount that the taxpayers, and that's been intentional.
the other thing we're avoiding from a capital budget standpoint is capital leases, where we're appearing $87,000 appear as capital dollars, and really they're going to be coming out of operating dollars, correct? So it's sort of misleading when we look at the 7-year plan with capital budgeting. More and more of that capital budgeting is really becoming annual expenses, but appearing on the capital budget. So that's, well,
Yes.
it's something that we're voting on and everybody's voting on.
Yep.
And the avoidance is, equipment, lifespan, owning it at the end, everything goes with a capital lease. And if we could take advantage of that, that's fine. But the analysis and the view that the capital budget gets, it's avoiding the fact that these dollars are not really here, they're really being expended in the budget as an expense.
Is it an expense?
It's an operating expense.
Is it an expense that is being paid by the taxpayer, or is it an expense that is being paid by revenue?
By fees.
By fees.
Fees. And I think that is the key point.
Well, then, that's,
That's,
yeah, and I totally agree. I don't know how you make a note of that. We're moving more and more towards that.
Well, your point's a good one. I have never carried, in the 5 years I've been here, any of the police vehicles. And yet, that's, approximately
Same thing.
150,000 that always goes in, because it's always, and maybe I don't put in some of these things that are almost like the cruisers, where they just constantly are updated as part of they are kind of, I don't know, some of them are capital-related expenses, but we record them differently in the way the approach we've taken.
Well, you record them differently also, and then the controller can back me up on this. You're gonna be, on your vehicles, you're really depreciating. I don't know if you use depreciation or not.
We
but-
don't.
Okay, so they are pure expense. On these, there's an obligation, so they have to be shown, because it's debt. Your cars aren't.
Right.
But you're saying here that $87,000 is a capital expense dedicated to a capital lease,
Yes.
which is really a debt, which is really going to own after paying whatever you pay, 5 years, I don't
Yeah.
know. So that's the huge difference between the police car owning, one-shot deal, you own it, it's your asset, you could show it on the town's assets. Forget about depreciation. That's where we talked about these green cars.
Yep.
Doesn't make a difference on depreciation and stuff, depreciable miles and that, doesn't make a difference. When you come to the capital budget and you've got capital assets being leased,
Yes. I'm with
these are really debt obligations that you're gonna own after it, or have the opportunity to own, but you're really paying the lease off as if it were an installment loan.
I will make a note on there that it's lease related, 'cause
Yeah.
I need to do that. For
Okay,
disclosure purposes.
so everybody comfortable with the golf?
Yep.
Comfortable with the
Excellent.
debt?
Thank you.
I was
He
gonna make a
needs a
comment.
motion in a second.
Well, first place, I want to make a comment. Keep on making money to pay off your debt. And do you foresee any other large debt coming in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, one thing just on that, we will, and you will be seeing, so I just want to make sure we kind of fully disclose this, that we did the lease for the restaurant. And in the lease for the restaurant, it had 5 years, so 3 years as a base and then 2 year for an extension. And the situation at the facility is that it was less than desirable for a restaurant purposes. When we initially did the lease, the contractor has come in and made substantial improvements. And he's now asking for compensation for those improvements.
Those are leasehold improvements.
So they are.
Yeah,
but
and
we're having a discussion with him with the idea that at the end of his 5-year lease, that before, when the previous vendor went out and we only had one bidder to come in, so there's only one bidder to come in, that we did not turn over a restaurant operation to a restaurateur. And what we're trying to do this time is when this lease is up, assuming that he doesn't come back, or if he wants to come back, that we would have a facility, and we have been pumping in about $15,000 a year into improvements, building a freezer outside, changing some of the furniture, that we'd like to have it at the end of that 5 years, that we would have a restaurant that would be a turnkey operation, that we would lease it out, and that everything would be set up to go.
but you started your conversation with the lessor, the lessee, is interested that he's made improvements.
He has.
Does he want compensation for
Yes, he
them?
does. And we're having a discussion about if we say no, he takes everything out in accordance with the lease, and then we're back to kind of, not exactly where we started, but we're back in a situation where we'd have to pump money in to bring it up. Or the more, in my opinion, pragmatic approach is to take into account and work something out with him so we can leave it as a turnkey. And to your point about depreciation, as we met with him, I brought up that the equipment and the improvements that he made have depreciated or will depreciate over 5 years. And that the value of what he put in versus the value that it's at now are two different things. And he has been amenable to that. It's been a little bit of a tough negotiation, and when we have one bidder, it may not be a lot of people lined up.
Well,
to
let me
begin
ask you,
with.
why,
I just bring that up
could,
because we
could the
haven't
deal,
put
could,
money in.
again, I'm not in the leasing business, but the question that I would ask is, could the lease be amended so that should he, if you agree, buy a new refrigerator, it's the town's refrigerator and not his, if it's justified? So that in the end, you know what he's purchased, you've purchased, you own it.
Yeah, we know what
And then
we,
you have
Yep.
should he not renew, you have a finished product that he
Absolutely.
created that you don't have to debate at the end of 5 years. I mean,
right. We do have a list of all the improvements he's made that he would take with him, some that, you know, are movable, portable, that he could take with him, and what are permanent fixtures. So, we
well, I guess
had
my
that
point is during the
discussion.
5 years, why don't we buy it?
That's what we're,
That's the plan.
we have bought some, and some of the ones that he has already put in, we would pay him for, so that way he doesn't take them out when he leaves.
This is a good lesson too, because aren't we going to be leasing a
Snack
restaurant
shack.
facility in the harbor?
Yes, we are.
And what are we learning from the golf that can be applied to that?
Cash is king.
So are we gonna start buying equipment for the snack shack at the harbor?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's a little bit of well, two things. One, the golf operation already had a quasi-restaurant in there. So we started off at a quasi-restaurant. I say quasi because I don't know if he was a true restaurateur. I mean, it seems like what he did was a little bit homegrown. What we've done at the harbor is a little bit different. We were limited on the money on the harbor, just to remind everyone that we were very limited on the money on the harbor. We basically have the shell of a building.
Right.
So when we do that lease, it would be, here's the building, everything you bring in and is portable ovens, portable things, you bring in, you provide your own capital stock, and at the end of that, actually, we have a 5-year ability to, I'm sorry, a 10-year ability to go on that lease, a longer period of time. That we would probably do that lease for 10 years, but we would have the person bring everything in. So we are gonna structure that lease a little bit differently, where we know someone will come in and bring all the material. This one is a little different because things weren't laid out as a restaurant would normally be laid out.
Let me ask you one question so we can wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What fund is going to be funding any?
So what we're discussing is the Pro Shop revolving fund,
That's
which
where it's coming from?
has in it clubhouse improvements. We would be funding the purchase of the restaurant equipment over 2 years is what we're discussing.
Okay.
And we're trying to negotiate with him concepts, so, to
Okay.
help him, help us.
Other than that, other than,
You said if there was any other, and I just.
well, I'm
didn't
talking
want
about
you to-
buildings. Is there anything big, like new cart paths, some large capital, not restaurant improvement?
We're, just what's on here, so what we have in our plans is for a T renovation in FY '21 and '22 that we plan to fund out of the member contribution in the golf improvement fund.
Okay.
Where are
We
those
plan to fund
last-
that in full.
Where are the last three coming from, Roman, just to kind of finish this out on the funding sources?
The last three,
The improvements to the driving range,
yeah, so let's see.
is that out of improvement, budget, or infrastructure
Let's see,
fund?
I've got a list here.
Well,
Yeah, we could
these
do
are
that
sort of,
offline.
these are sort of minor in terms of dollar. My real concern is, do you see in the next 5 to 7 years any modifications or any expansion like somebody saying you can't eat outside because of the bugs or whatever. I think, Pete, you brought that up. Is there any expansion to the building, or is that footprint in concrete,
No,
literally?
We're not looking at expanding the footing of the building
Okay, so then we're good.
In the near term.
in the near term. We're
One
looking
of the
at,
things, I mean, we have an issue where we have to have paper plates if we go a certain, at some point, I think as a community, as a golf operation, we need to look at the septic system and see, is there something we can do? I'd hate to say we're not gonna look at anything, because that may make some sense to look at.
Okay. Any questions? No. Want to take a vote, or we took a vote, or?
I'll make a motion that we vote on the golf request totaling $247,050.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You're good.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, the restaurant has been very good. It continues to
Yeah.
be good.
Okay. So we did the debt service, we did the golf, we did the maintenance. Everybody comfortable with what we've done so far?
Yep.
Okay.
Community preservation.
CPC.
So on the CPC, that I did flag, and you have in front of you, the items. The only ones, I went through it this morning, I think they had 8 requests in total. They did have in there the crossing lights, which I had carried, is under 50,000, but they had the specific location, Depot Street North. So I just identified the detail on that. And then everything else on CPC, I believe you voted on all the CPC-related ones. The only 2 that were added that I missed was Brooks Academy, which is technically a non-town, semi-town agency. I don't know exactly how to call them, but they have a basement rehabilitation for storage of historic documents, and they have a request in there for $130,000, so certainly above the $50,000 threshold. The other one is below the $50,000 threshold, and just the CDP, which I'm having a community
Partnership,
community
No.
development partnership,
yeah.
is a group
Housing
that's
Institute.
running this housing institute, it's 7,500, so below the threshold.
Okay.
But is the, just on the Brooks Academy, that's a building that's still owned by the town, but leased to?
Yeah, the town still owns that.
Yeah, so that would be a town asset that if you wanted to, and I have to admit that I didn't get a lot of details from Dave Spitz on exactly what the work was gonna be done.
When is their vote? Do you know?
I'm sorry?
How many of CPC that we have? 1, 2?
I think there was 8 in total, that
Okay.
we had 6 built throughout, and then the last 2 were the 2 that I hadn't captured before.
When do we find out if they accept it or not?
They have 2 meetings set up,
Yep.
one is tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so one's tonight, and then I'm going for the housing one on December 13th.
Okay. I would make this recommendation that we voted for.
Yep.
But I think, like, I'm looking at the lifeguard stands. It's CPC funded out of the recreation pot, okay? If they vote no to that, our votes have always been, if they're always funded by CPC, we say yes.
Yeah.
I think that's one we really have to reconsider if it comes back a no.
Right.
We would have to consider any of them that come back that are no.
Yes, yeah, okay. And I don't know,
Within funding levels.
yeah, I'm just saying, right, I mean,
But no, your point's
our
well taken.
basic, some of these, we have to relook at.
Right.
And I'm just picking that one because that's certainly a safety issue to me.
Yeah, I think Eric had said one of the lifeguards, one of the rails had fallen. and,
Yeah.
I mean, that's workers' comp. I mean, we're gonna spend money other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when, do you, as administrators, know when their total vote, in other words, their vote, how their vote is going to affect our 7-year plan.
I think that I think they indicated that they would have a final decision by January. So they're having their recommendation, or they're having their presentations by departments tonight and next week.
No, the
I'm sorry,
13th.
December 13th. And then they'll deliberate and then vote in January.
Okay, so I think
That's
what
their
we should do is, we've never really made a real outcry kind of note when we present in December. December 10th, I think is the date?
I think so.
Yeah, I think what we go in, you're presenting the plan, right? Okay, and we're there to support, we're his committee. We go there to support it, but I think that we should be there to note that our approval on whatever the dollar value of the CPC is dependent on their vote, and there could be a change in January where we could, the easiest one to understand that I think is lifeguard stands.
It'd be a
Safety
good
issue.
idea to explain that one.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah, that's,
I just have a question. The lifeguard stands, are they the general stands on the beaches, or are they the ones for the sand pond?
No.
They're throughout the,
Okay, they're
throughout
serious.
the community, is my understanding.
All right.
we try to take some from Dennis, but it didn't work. Wouldn't fit on his pickup truck. But we could. So I think we have to, we'll do that, and we're in good shape. So I think we voted on everything, and I have one question, Chris.
Well,
Go ahead.
just on that, I don't know, I mean, you have a meeting scheduled for the 29th. If you want to have Dave Spitz come in and do an overview of the basement rehabilitation, that may be worthwhile. I just haven't had him in, or haven't had a lengthy discussion. I have a copy of the applications. I got a copy of the applications this morning.
What
But
does Spitz do now?
Dave Spitz is, I'm sorry, the chairman
He's
of the
retired, and
the
he's-
Brooks Academy committee.
Okay. Okay,
I think that's a good idea.
yeah.
$130,000.
It's a chunk of money.
I'd
and-
like
and
to know
that's a-
more about
That's a
it.
prelude to, that building needs an elevator. I mean, we've toured it, actually Sean and I have toured it. In order to get access to the second floor, you need, and we just had an ADA study done. You need
Okay.
the elevator and you need other improvements. So
There-
this is
there-
the first of multi.
Excuse me, Chris. The 130,000 they're looking for is to store historical documents in the basement, right?
To renovate the basement to make it more compatible to store
Is
documents.
this gonna include heating and ventilation? Because historical documents have to be preserved, or they're gonna get mold and be destroyed.
Ziploc.
The answer is
bags.
I just don't have enough information to comment. That's
Okay.
why I think it's worthwhile to have him in.
They got, yeah.
Ziploc.
Ocean State has them on sale now, so they go. they're trying
Benny's had them too.
We bought
Look
those.
what happened to
already.
Betty, so.
Those-
We need one for him.
We have those bags in the basement here. Yeah.
Aren't we in the process of historical records being put in the community center?
That's for Historical Society at the Brooks Academy.
We are. Well, wait a minute.
So-
Just to answer the question, last year we asked for 120,000 from CPC at their behest. They had their own idea. We presented something different. We do have the funding, and we will finish that project and put the record storage in the basement of the community center.
So my question is, why don't we move the records from Brooks Academy and not spend the money there and move them to the community center?
That's why I said
Go ahead.
it's because that's for the Historical Society, which is not part of the town. The Historical Society needs a place to store their own historical.
We only store town records. We don't store other.
So we're
That-
improving the building we own so that whoever uses the building can store stuff.
If I may, other communities I've worked in, it happens all the time.
Well, no, I'm just
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah.
It just-
Yeah.
We own
Just-
the building, we lease the building, and now the lessor is saying, the lessee is saying, I gotta store my stuff down the basement, fix the building so I can do that.
It's
That's what the
similar
one,
to,
that's plain
The
English.
South Harwich Meeting House, though, I mean, that's a town-owned asset that's being used by a private party.
It's
friends
just
of the-
common sense to me says we should take the records, put them in a truck and drive them over to the community center where they're gonna, where we're
If-
gonna.
And,
But they're not town records, I don't think you'd want the
But-
town
but-
responsible for.
but the town is responsible if we own the building. What's the, I'm sort of with you now.
Per the lease agreement,
For
though,
the-
that we
it-
have.
Okay, well, you guys do the, anyway,
They have to have their own insurance,
right, okay.
we don't.
There's no
Shared
request,
liability.
there is no request for any type of improvement or work for the Harwich School, the one behind the Baptist church.
West Harwich School,
I'm just,
I have that here.
Insurance.
Oh, under the insurance.
Can I back up?
Insurance work.
Do you want Dave Spitz at the next meeting?
gentlemen,
'Cause I thought I
Please.
had-
I'd like to know more about it.
please.
Because I have a feeling there's gonna be multi-phases to that.
Yeah.
And that could be $500,000 pretty easily. Yes.
Sean,
Higher.
Sean, do you, about the school, is there any,
Just use the microphone, come up.
is there anything about the school that we should know about?
No, I presented it when I first came in. It's just the insurance company, because it's an uninhabited building, they wanted us to repair the roof. So it's a $20,000 roof repair.
You got it on here?
Top line administrative
Insurance
extra.
maintenance to
Oh,
maintain
administration?
former. Insurance work to maintain the former. I am only carrying 10, I should be carrying 20.
20.
My bad.
But what are we insuring?
The empty building.
Okay.
I'll defer everything else to
So,
Chris.
so the premium or the work is $20,000?
No, the premium, they said, basically, they came out, they did an inspection, they said if you still want to have insurance coverage on it, you have to do the following 3 items. And the first item was securing the porch area and the roof, and some of it we can do in-house, which we will, but the roof work is $20,000.
How much is the building worth? Anybody know? Not the property, the building.
I know, that's
I have a question. I thought the project was to send out a request to see if anybody wanted to use the building for whatever purpose, and was gonna lease it for a
It's long gone.
And if that,
Isn't it?
and if
That's in the
nothing has-
rearview mirror.
if nothing has happened,
Right.
then what you do is you, instead of spending the $20,000 to put a roof on, you spend the $20,000 to allow the fire department to practice in it or something.
Well, to that point, and not to be too flip, but, 5 years ago when I started, I said, well, why don't we demo it to get something going?
You had a brother-in-law that had a truck that would, no. Go ahead.
But on that, so 5 years ago, I got a discussion started, so we've had 3 iterations. The first iteration was Lou Urbano came in, wanted to do it as a boat building shop. I went to town meeting, came close, but didn't get CPC funded. So that went by the boards. The town meeting didn't act, so there was no process. The selectmen then said we'd like to have the building moved or other concepts presented. That was probably done about a year ago, I think, and no takers. So now there is another group in West Harwich that has an idea that they would like to come in and do something with the building similar to the South Harwich Meeting House. And we've actually, Charlene and I even met with some of the folks to try to see if they can formalize what they want to do with it. But I don't believe, as the current Board of Selectmen is constituted, that there's a majority that want to have the building demoed,
Not have it demoed,
not have it demoed.
because aren't they moving to have it put on the historical register?
The
Private effort.
private group came in, it's kind of a whole bunch of nothing, but they came in to get a group from Preserve, Massachusetts, and they tried to get it on the list. It did not make it on the list, but even if you get it on Preserve, Massachusetts, it's a group, nonprofit group that kind of funds studies to help you find reuses for buildings.
The bottom line that this committee is concerned about at least I'm speaking if you, okay, is if I have a building that's worth $15,000, why am I investing $20,000? Because it's not improving it to $35,000.
I don't remember we have a statement of values. I don't remember what they valued that building at.
I think the $20,000 could be used elsewhere. And we don't have to, it's not it's a non-vote issue. But I think we should take a position, just make a note.
Yeah, I think these people are saying, preserve it, don't tear it down. I've been all through these iterations that Chris just referred to. But meanwhile, they're asking us, the taxpayers, to come up with $20,000 to improve it. For what? For whom? What are the taxpayers gonna get out of it? 10 years from now, we're gonna have another roof problem. Or you're gonna have another problem. Let's address it right now. Either fix it up or tear it down.
Well, the tear down's not going to happen, okay? Apparently that's.
Yeah, as the
that's
board is
not-
currently
okay,
constituted, they
it's-
have not
but
authorized me to tear it down.
Should the building disintegrate by not investing?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the value, maybe
And
we can.
it's being pushed by the insurance
I can try to
company.
get the value for you.
Of course,
for
they want their
January
premium.
Yeah, we're not gonna insure it if you don't fix it. So
Right.
we're gonna be
But
forced.
they're also getting in a premium, a contractor's getting 20 grand
Yeah.
or whatever, and you doing the work. And, you know, it could be 20,000 in materials, and that doesn't include his department's labor.
Oh, it's a whole bunch of
So
stuff.
now you're talking $50,000, or you guys double time, $60,000, okay, because they could, you know.
Well, Sean, I don't know anything about the roof, but I'm sure that it's made with boards, it's not made with plywood. And those boards are a lot of, 50% of them are rotted, so they have to be replaced with plywood. You're not gonna get much roofing done for $20,000.
Well, I think can we bring that on the 29th?
Yeah,
Can
we'll
can
have
we
the-
just,
I think
it's
the
not a
premium-
voting issue, but I really think we should take a position.
I agree.
You know.
We'll get you the premium amount and then the value of the building. I think the premium is about $5,000. It's less than $5,000, so just what we have been insuring. And that's been being insured, folks, for 20-something years. How long has it been decommissioned as a schoolhouse?
20 grand a house.
A long time.
20-something.
5 years worth of coverage.
Should we have a visit to this
No.
They can't get in.
dinosaur?
I drove by it.
No, it's got great windows. You
know-
can look in.
Okay.
It's got new windows, right?
If you want to have a tour,
No,
he
we didn't
needs-
do the windows.
No, we did not.
No,
Turn that
Oh,
The
okay.
window money went back.
Oh,
because of the vandalism.
oh, that's right, put new windows in. whatever.
Unfortunately, we're moving it in the same kind of direction. On the bottom of this page, we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on repairing the middle school, which, by the way, has never been voted on to go forward except for a couple of years. And
That's the elephant in the room.
if you think indeed that the 5,000 or 20,000 is a lot of money for our taxpayers to pay, you're talking about a ton of money.
Can we,
$125,000 each year for 5 years.
can we
Not that I know it off the top of my head, but I fund it every year.
Can we have the value of the middle school too, okay? For the 29th?
The statement of values for the middle school?
The middle school and whatever that Harwich school is, and what, I know it has a revenue value of $111,000, or whatever that number is.
What are you saying?
The middle school brings in 111 or 110.
Actually, you're right. It brings in about 120, and we subsidize 125 out of free cash each year.
So that's
So
So
because,
it's 250 that we put
So-
into it each year.
And, okay, so,
Half from fees,
I
half from
just-
taxpayer.
so that we have an agenda item for the 29th, again, not votable, but we can talk about, and Sean, if you'd care to join us, we have to look at, and I think you said in the note to me that one of the selectmen said that we have to address the non-something assets.
Non-performing assets.
And I would say that the middle school, if it's underperforming, it's non-performing. And of course, the school, the old school, is non-performing.
I would just ask for a sources and uses document rather than the 125.
We have it.
Okay?
We have that.
So that might be a nice way to end the 29th, okay? Well, I think, you know,
I
we
hear
keep
you.
on bringing things up. Sean gets the stuff. He brings it here, it goes on here, it's under 50, we can't vote on it. Pardon me?
The sources and uses, you've asked for them to come back after you guys vote. in either.
That's what he
January or
asked for
February.
after. What I want to see is just those two buildings, and I really don't care about sources and
And you want the
uses.
statement of value.
We'll do that in the hiatus after January. But I think when I look at this, and it always comes up at town meeting, well, what else is in the future? You know, and we're questioned about what else in the future. We can say, well, we've got and we can support one of the selectmen by saying that we have two obvious non-producing or underproducing assets. And I think for the past 4 years, whenever I've done my presentation, it's always has been that this committee is looking at assets that are expendable. Okay, and we support the idea of getting, like the firehouse, finally, the old firehouse. Okay, so that's good.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Do you think it would be valuable to the town meeting to know where the funds come from in total? Let's say we spend $10,000 in total. There's 1,000 from taxes, there's 2,000 from the state, there's 5,000 from fees, and whatnot, so that the town residents can understand.
Well, the other thing you
what's
can do is you can give them the last page
Yeah,
of
we have it on
where.
the last page, out of the
But I
10
think
million, where it's
I
coming
think in
from.
numbers,
Oh, just on the last page too.
last page.
Angelo, that Carol, I want to make sure Carol gets good credit. We did revise, Carol revised, I won't even use the word we, I'll use the word Carol. Revised the form, so that I think that's a little bit better. And, we couldn't break out individual projects because it's just too much detail for a small section.
But I think your sources and uses, free cash,
Yeah.
and that, fine.
And then that was.
And then here,
I think we're pretty transparent. I'm a little bit concerned that, I have a member of the board saying to me, cut out all this stuff, it's too busy. And yet I think it's actually very educational, so I'm
Well,
kind
I
of trying to
think-
do two versions, but I'm getting
Uh,
pushback about providing too much information.
well, this is, if in fact this is a public document, I'm siding with you guys for the first time. Because my point is, this is a working, and I'd like to see draft on here. Okay? So if it is draft, then it is not public. Only because they're working documents, and if they get to the wrong, well, you said this on the 8th.
Right.
Well, I didn't mean it on the 8th, it was to be modified.
I gotta watermark that, so it always is draft.
Okay, so what we need is I don't know how you fit this, it's kind of squeezed into the warrant, but I'm with Angelo on providing as much information as we can. If it's public, I don't really
Oh,
care,
But I wasn't asking, see, if you come down and read capital funding by source, and I'm a resident, unless you understand what these different things are, they probably won't understand that exclusion that comes out of taxes.
Taxes, okay. I can do a better job in those definitions.
I mean, because I only think it's like 5
That's
or
no
6
problem.
items, and it says the total amount and how much comes from each source. And I think
Okay,
it's
well, we'll
a
work on
simple-
it.
I think it's a simple.
We'll work on it.
simple number. I think it's gonna surprise the hell out of
We have 3 or 4 months when we have, according to the charter, again, December, this is presented with the caveat that it's still subject to change. Yes, sir?
I wouldn't want to see any of this information disappear off the chart. And I heard somebody complained that we were given
Too
too
busy.
much information. And maybe they didn't understand it, but, I don't know, I think we.
Well, I think we have an obligation as a working committee, okay, that we all represent different functions of the town of Harwich. And if we think that this is a good working document.
Yeah.
And we think, with modifications, that some of it, fortunately, I really think the people sitting at this table have a financial background of sorts that can read this. If somebody doesn't, then there's an issue. And it's not a tutorial. If it were a tutorial, it's a public meeting. We meet whenever we meet, and if we publicize it. If they want to come and join us and in the discussion, we can. But I think to provide the information is only fair.
I think what I did last year was specifically in the capital budget article, it says only capital budget article items that are over 50,000. So I took everything out that was below 50,000 and did a version that was just 50,000. And then in the appendix in the back, I kept this, because I had article numbers, so if people want to see, oh, article number goes with what capital item, it's right there. I did put in that column too, MY for multi-year. You guys had asked me to try to highlight multi-year. It's not great, but there's only so many color codes.
Yeah, I mean, we can't get, you know, not all of us are MBAs and have the advantage of understanding what this is all about. I think if you make it plain and simple, fine. It's the plain and simple analysis. The average house in Harwich is $350,000. It pays X amount of dollars. How much is this year tax impact going to be on that X? Is it X plus 4?
That's exactly what
right,
that
X plus 5, whatever that is. I want to do that. Because we're getting, if you remember last year, and this is what I really want to clear up before town meeting when we meet, is the discussion that this is not, and this is how I asked our first meeting, what is a capital budget versus what is a 5-year capital plan, what is a 7-year capital plan, what is capital budgeting, okay? Because we get into the discussion on the floor, well, this is really not, and this year, we're gonna probably get it again.
Yeah.
And I'm just, you know, we had, it was, I don't know who the third one was, but there were 3 chairmen, 2 former chairmen and myself of the Capital Outlay Committee, all saying, well, you know, this is not what I anticipated, this is not what I did. Well, if you don't understand what a capital asset is, I mean, this is what we're dealing with. So, I just want to be prepared,
Yeah,
and I think the discussion should become moot, because this is the way it's going to be. Anything else? Let me see. Any old business? Any new business? The 29th is the Thursday after Thanksgiving.
That's our next meeting?
Yeah, and then we have 2 weeks
To December 10th.
to December the 10th. And we would just have to be in the audience, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, we,
I think last time you got up and stood at the podium if people had questions for you or for me, and
yeah, I think we just
Whichever way you
supported
wanna
you
do
and said, yeah. I mean, he did the brunt of it.
You did a good job.
Yeah, he did the brunt of it, so
Yeah.
that's,
November 15th meeting, joint meeting with,
Oh.
it's December 10th, I think, is the meeting with the selectmen for the presentation of it.
no, I'm not saying that, the meeting that was
DY.
on
15.
the three houses, the 3 towns.
You
DHY.
said something about David not being available?
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, David Young's not available for, they wanted me to do it on, there was a discussion about whether it's gonna be next Thursday or next Wednesday. He's not available next Wednesday. Larry Ballantyne wasn't available next Wednesday. So I recommended Thursday, so it is Thursday at 6 o'clock. And I believe we did it at the, I wasn't in the
Community
office this
center.
afternoon, community center, one of the rooms in the community center, because we have a full house here
Right.
that night. So 6 o'clock at the community center for DHY, similar to the IMA with Chatham, to kind of go over what the different terms and conditions of what that partnership would look like.
Well,
Thank you, thank you.
he has the cliff notes on it, do you want to? Okay. Anything from the back, from the assistant town administrator? How are your green cars going? Good? They're working well, huh? You're getting one, I heard. Yeah, we're getting, green truck. Yep. You'll look like you come from Dennis with a nice green truck. Nice. Well, I'm in favor. Angela said something many years ago, and it stayed in my head.
I believe it.
When you were on the Board of Selectmen, you said, you recommended that Harwich, all the vehicles should be one color, and cranberry, remember that? Cranberry should be the color. And I'm in total agreement with that. You don't have to put that.
You must have said
At the
that before
golf
I
course,
got
the
it. I
golf
don't remember.
court truck is cranberry, and all the golf carts are cranberry
Cranberry.
colored.
Really?
Yep.
And we got a green vehicle.
It's selling in your town.
It is. People would just jump at the opportunity to be on, yeah. Anything else? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Stand up, please.